if you leave a sealed glass bottle of water in your freezer overnight, you know exactly what happens by morning. You open the door, and the bottle is just completely shattered.
Yeah, totally destroyed.
Right, because the glass just didn't stand a chance against the outward pressure of the ice. Now, I want you to imagine burying millions of those microscopic glass bottles beneath your backyard patio right before a brutal West Texas winter.
Oh man, pop, crack, ruin.
Exactly.
Oh, ruin.
It's literally a recipe for absolute destruction. And the crazy thing is, it's happening constantly right under our feet.
And that is exactly what makes our topic today so surprising. Because usually when you stumble onto a local business website like a driveway or patio contractor, you expect a pretty, purely functional, mundane experience.
Right, like a phone number and maybe some stock photos.
Yeah, exactly. Some stock photos of people pointing happily at a freshly poured sidewalk.
Yeah.
But when you look at the engineering breakdown from 806 concrete patio and driveway out in Lubbock, Texas, you are suddenly pulled into this completely different world. A really fascinating world, actually.
It really is. Because what looks on the surface like a basic pitch for a backyard upgrade is actually this hidden masterclass in material science, climate engineering, and the exact science of visual illusion.
It's way more intense than just mixing some gray powder with water.
Totally. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this information and discover how professionals actually engineer outdoor spaces to survive some of the most hostile environments imaginable, all while mimicking high-end luxury.
Which is no small feat, given what they're up against.
Right. It turns out pouring a patio is a lot more like going to war with nature than I ever realized.
Right.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Before we can even talk about creating a beautiful, luxurious outdoor living space, we first have to understand the violent environmental forces that are actively trying to destroy it.
And, violent is really not an overstatement when you look at the climate data for West Texas.
Not at all.
We are talking about an environment that is fundamentally hostile to cheap construction. You have these blistering 100-degree summer days that just bake the earth into a brick.
Just absolutely scorch it.
Yeah, and then that's followed by sudden, aggressive winter freezes. But the temperature swings are really just the beginning. The very ground you are building on is actively working against you.
Yeah, I was reading about the specific soil in that region, and it's notorious for having this challenging sandy loam. But what does that actually mean for a homeowner trying to build a patio? Like, why is sandy loam so dangerous for construction?
Well, it comes down to the microscopic structure of the earth itself. So sandy loam is basically a mixture of sand, silt, and just a little bit of clay.
Oh, okay.
And because of that particulate structure, it drains water very rapidly, which, sounds like a good thing at first.
Right, you want drainage.
Exactly. But it completely lacks cohesive strength.
Yeah.
So if you put thousands of pounds of heavy material on top of it without proper preparation, the earth will simply wash out during heavy rains. Or it'll settle really unevenly as it dries. The ground is just constantly shifting beneath you.
So if you take your standard backyard upgrades and just drop them onto shifting soil in a climate with extreme temperature swings, they don't stand a chance.
Not a chance in hell.
Like standard wooden decks are going to warp, they're going to splinter and rot under the intense sun and moisture variations. Basic brick pavers will just start migrating and separating as the sandy loam washes out beneath them.
Yeah, they just get swallowed up by the yard.
Right. And cheap, substandard concrete slabs are going to get absolutely destroyed.
Which really brings us to the invisible enemy you mentioned at the start. Because the destruction of standard concrete isn't just about the heat, right? It's primarily about the cold.
The cold. Wow.
Yeah. It's a specific mechanical process called the freeze-thaw cycle. And historically, areas like Lubbock experience dozens of these really aggressive cycles every single winter.
I want to go back to that glass bottle analogy for a second.
Okay.
Because when I saw the actual physics of what happens inside a basic concrete slab during a freeze, it absolutely blew my mind. Concrete looks totally solid to the naked eye, but it's not, is it?
Oh, not at all. Standard, poorly mixed or unsealed concrete is actually highly porous.
Like a sponge.
Exactly like a sponge. It is full of microscopic pores and these tiny capillary channels. So on a wet, rainy winter day, the concrete essentially acts like a giant, rigid sponge. It just drinks the moisture right in.
Okay, so it's full of water.
Right. And then the sun goes down, the temperature plummets below freezing, and that trapped liquid water turns into ice. And the chemical reality here is that when water freezes, it expands by approximately 9%.
9%.
Yep, 9%.
So just like that glass bottle in the freezer, the water has absolutely nowhere to go.
Mhm.
You have millions of these microscopic pockets of water expanding outward with incredible force simultaneously inside a rigid stone structure.
It's massive internal pressure.
The internal pressure literally shatters the surface of the slab from the inside out.
Yeah, it fractures the concrete at a microscopic level first, and then, with every single freeze-thaw cycle, those fractures just grow and grow until the surface literally starts flaking, popping, and just crumbling away.
But wait, I have to push back here.
Sure.
If we know the environment guarantees that water will freeze and expand by 9%,
Right.
and we know the material is essentially a sponge for destruction, why use concrete at all in a place like Lubbock? It seems like a guaranteed failure. Why not just use something else entirely?
See, what's fascinating here is that true professionals don't abandon the material. They engineer a way to change its internal microscopic structure.
Interesting.
Yeah, they know they can't stop the physics of freezing water, right? You can't fight nature, so they fight the inevitability from the inside out. Instead of using a standard concrete mix, they utilize what are called air-entrained concrete mixes.
Air-entrained, so they're deliberately pumping, like, empty air into the wet cement.
Precisely. They are deliberately adding air.
Wow.
These are highly specialized professional batches engineered to contain literally billions of microscopic air bubbles, and they're distributed perfectly evenly throughout the entire concrete slab.
I see where this is going. The bubbles aren't just filler taking up space to make it cheaper or lighter. They are tiny pressure relief valves.
You've got it. That's exactly what they are. When the moisture inside the concrete inevitably freezes and expands by that 9%, the ice needs a place to go.
Right.
Instead of pushing against the rigid internal walls of the stone and shattering it, the expanding water just pushes right into those microscopic empty air bubbles. The bubbles safely absorb the expansion.
That is wild.
It really is. It is an entirely invisible defense system engineered right into the chemistry of the slab. And what's wild to me is that amateur weekend warriors often skip this specific mix because it costs a little more up front.
Oh, of course. To save a few bucks.
Exactly. Imagine you spend thousands of dollars and weeks of back-breaking labor on a backyard upgrade, you skip the air-entrained mix to save some money, and by next winter, your entire investment is literally tearing itself apart.
It's incredible to think the solution isn't building an impenetrable wall against the water, you know? The solution is simply giving the water a designated place to expand.
Yeah, just letting it do its thing safely.
But getting the chemistry right is really only half the battle, isn't it? Because when you look at day one of the actual installation process for these heavy-duty patios, it sounds a lot less like landscaping and a lot more like heavy civil engineering.
Oh, it absolutely is civil engineering. You don't just back a cement mixer up to the lawn and start pouring over the grass.
Right.
Day one is entirely about destruction, excavation, and structural foundation. The crews come in and aggressively dig out the old dirt, the grass, and whatever broken remnants of old patios were there before. There is a saying in the industry, actually. A patio is only as strong as the dirt beneath it.
Right, because of that sandy loam we talked about.
Yeah.
You can't just build a heavy stone structure on top of loose sand and silt.
Exactly. So they excavate the weak soil and then they bring in heavy machinery to aggressively compact the subgrade. They force the earth to become a solid, incredibly dense foundation.
But even a compacted subgrade needs help, right? Which is where we see a massive divergence between amateur jobs and professional standards in the source material. The top contractors install incredibly robust steel rebar grids before a single drop of concrete is even poured.
Yeah, that's a huge differentiator.
I was looking at the American Society of Concrete Contractors guidelines on this, and they make a very sharp distinction between using actual steel rebar, those thick, heavy metal bars tied together in a tight grid, versus using that flimsy, rolled-up wire mesh you see at big box hardware stores.
Yeah.
So why is the heavy steel so critical?
Well, it comes down to how concrete actually handles stress. So concrete has incredible compressive strength.
Compressive strength.
Yeah.
I mean, it can hold heavy things on top of it.
Exactly. It can hold thousands of pounds sitting directly on top of it. But it has very poor tensile strength, meaning it pulls apart really easily. So when that sandy loam soil inevitably tries to shift or settle unevenly, it creates tension. It physically pulls at the slab. That thick steel rebar grid is embedded right in the middle of the concrete to act as the skeleton.
The skeleton of the slab.
Right. The steel holds the concrete in tension, physically preventing the shifting earth below from tearing the slab apart.
Okay, so step one is essentially excavating the yard to build a bomb-proof, microscopic, bubble-filled, steel-reinforced bunker.
Basically, yes.
But let's be honest, a gray concrete bunker isn't exactly the vibe you want when you're hosting a summer cookout or drinking your morning coffee. I mean, gray slabs are boring and industrial. How do they take this brutally functional material and make it actually look like a luxury outdoor living space?
That is the magic of stamped concrete.
Stamped concrete.
Yeah. They take this heavily engineered material and turn it into a high-end architectural feature that can perfectly mimic luxury materials. We are talking about replicating the exact look and texture of natural cut stone, slate, hand-laid flagstone, classic European cobblestone.
I even saw they can stamp it to look indistinguishable from weathered wood planks.
Oh yeah, the wood plank stamps are incredible.
And the advantage there is huge because you get the exact visual warmth and rustic texture of a beautiful wooden deck. But you never have to worry about it rotting after a rainstorm or warping in the Texas sun or giving your kids splinters.
Exactly, because underneath the visual illusion, it's a solid, steel-reinforced stone. You get the aesthetic of nature with the durability of heavy engineering.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because making concrete look like real wood or natural stone isn't just about pressing a giant rubber stamp into wet cement. The coloring process itself is an exact science.
Very exact.
I originally assumed they just dumped a bucket of brown dye into the mixer and hoped it looked like wood, but it is a highly specific dual coloring method.
It has to be. If you just use one flat color, it just looks like painted plastic.
Yeah, it looks super fake.
Exactly. It lacks all the depth and shadows of natural materials. The dual coloring method is a two-step process designed specifically to build that three-dimensional realism.
I was looking at the first step, which they call the integral color. And this is a liquid or powder pigment that gets mixed directly into the concrete truck before the pour even begins. So they aren't just painting the top, they are baking the base color into the cake, so to speak.
That's a good way to put it.
But why go through all that trouble to dye the entire thickness of the slab?
Yeah.
Why not just paint the top layer?
Ugh. So this is about structural integrity just as much as aesthetics. Think about the life of a patio. People drop heavy cast iron patio furniture. Massive steel grills get dragged across the surface.
Oh, right. It takes the beating.
A huge beating. If you only colored the top millimeter of the concrete, any chip or deep scratch would reveal a bright, ugly gray scar underneath. But because the integral color is mixed all the way through the entire volume of the slab, it is structural color.
So the color goes all the way down.
Right. If the surface takes a heavy impact and chips, the stone revealed beneath is the exact same base color. It just blends right in.
That is brilliant. It makes the damage essentially invisible.
Exactly.
But like you said, a typical color just gives you one solid, flat tone.
Yeah.
Real stone and natural wood have grain. They have dark shadows in the crevices. They have contrast.
Which makes the second step absolutely crucial. Right before they stamp the pattern, they apply what's called a colored release agent to the surface of the wet concrete. And this is a secondary, usually much darker contrasting color.
I was trying to visualize how this creates the illusion, and it feels kind of like applying a dark wood stain over a piece of carved furniture. When you wipe the stain on, it naturally pulls in the deep carved grooves and the grain, making the shadows look deeper and making the actual texture visually pop.
That is the perfect analogy. The release agent does exactly that. When the heavy polyurethane mats are forcefully pressed into the wet concrete to create the pattern, they push that darker secondary color deep into the faux grout lines, the wood grain, and the pits of the faux stone.
Oh, so it physically forces the dark color down into the low spots?
Yes. It creates a highly realistic antiquing effect. It completely tricks the human eye into seeing authentic depth and age.
So we have a heavily engineered chemical mix that's colored completely through, with a secondary antiquing color layered on top, ready to be stamped into a luxury pattern.
Yeah.
But actually executing this sounds incredibly stressful. When you look at day 2 of the installation, the actual pour, it's described as fast, loud, and requiring absolute precision.
It is an absolute race against the clock. And the reason for that urgency is the chemistry of the concrete itself. A lot of people think concrete dries out by losing water to the air, but that's actually a myth.
Wait, really? It doesn't just dry?
No, not at all. Concrete cures through a chemical reaction called hydration. It is an exothermic reaction, meaning it actually generates its own heat as the water molecules permanently bond with the cement particles to form crystals.
Oh, wow.
Once that concrete leaves the truck, that chemical reaction is entirely out of the crew's hands. and it waits for no one.
So the concrete is literally getting hot and hardening on a one-way chemical street.
Precisely. The crew has an incredibly tight window. In the span of just a few hours, they have to pour thousands of pounds of concrete, level it perfectly to ensure water drains away from the house, apply both coloring agents, and forcefully stamp the complex pattern across the entire surface before the material hardens.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. If they're even 10 minutes too slow, the concrete sets, the heavy stamps won't make a deep enough impression, and the entire patio is ruined.
It's a highly choreographed physical performance. But then we get to day 3. And this is the part of the process that truly blew my mind. Day 3 is supposed to be the finishing touches, right?
Right, the cleanup and sealing.
Yeah. The crews come back, they wash off the excess release agent to reveal the final vibrant colors, and they prepare to seal it. But right in the middle of this finishing process, the contractors take a specialized diamond blade saw and intentionally cut deep lines right into the brand new, perfectly stamped patio.
Yes, they do.
You just spent 2 days engineering a perfect, bomb-proof illusion of luxury. Why in the world would you take a saw and intentionally damage it?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a fundamental, non-negotiable truth about the material itself. Construction engineers know a very frustrating chemical reality. As concrete continues to cure and fully harden over time, it physically shrinks.
It shrinks.
It shrinks, and because it shrinks, it wants to crack.
It wants to crack. The tension makes it inevitable.
It is entirely inevitable. You literally cannot stop the physics of shrinkage. So the professionals don't even try to stop it, they manage it. Those cuts they make with the saw are called control joints.
Control joints, so they are actively guiding the damage.
Precisely. They use the saw to strategically place deep grooves in specific, mathematically calculated areas of the slab. Because the contractors know the concrete must eventually shrink and fracture, they provide the concrete with the weakest possible path to do so.
Ah, so it cracks exactly where they tell it.
Yes. When the internal tension builds up over the months, the slab cracks cleanly and invisibly inside the hidden groove at the very bottom of the control joint.
That is so smart.
It really is. They prevent it from tearing a massive, jagged, highly visible fissure right across the beautiful faux stone pattern on the surface. They accept the inevitable flaw, and they intentionally engineer a safe place for it to happen.
So what does this all mean? I mean, we've talked about microscopic air bubbles acting as pressure valves, heavy steel excavation fighting shifting soil, dual color chemistry creating visual illusions, and controlled cracking. But what does this massive technical undertaking actually mean for you, the homeowner? How does this translate into your daily life?
Fundamentally, it transforms the way you use your property. This isn't just about making the backyard look pretty for a few weeks in the spring. You are effectively extending the functional square footage of the home.
Right.
You are creating a durable, highly usable outdoor living room. It's a dedicated place for summer cookouts, quiet morning coffees, or hosting a massive Texas Tech game day watch party without worrying about the ground literally shifting under your guests' feet.
You're building an outdoor room that can actually survive the elements.
Yeah.
And it's a major financial investment, right? When you look at the real estate data from places like the Concrete Network and Home Advisor, the return on investment is massive.
The financial reality is very compelling. Well-designed, professionally stamped patios offer an incredible ROI when it comes time to sell a home. Modern buyers are looking for move-in-ready outdoor entertainment spaces. They want that luxury look.
Yeah, everybody wants the outdoor oasis.
Exactly. What they absolutely do not want is to inherit a crumbling, weed-infested, broken concrete slab that they have to pay thousands of dollars to jackhammer and remove.
And if the patio is installed correctly, if the contractor used the air-entrained mix, the heavy steel rebar, and placed the control joints perfectly, how long is this investment going to last?
Engineering standards suggest that a properly installed and maintained stamped concrete patio, even in that harsh Lubbock climate, will easily last 25 to 30 years.
25 to 30 years. That is a massive lifespan for something permanently exposed to West Texas summers and hard freezes.
It really is.
But I do have a practical concern here that I think a lot of people would wonder about. We are talking about a sealed, relatively smooth stone surface. If I have kids running around a pool deck, isn't a sealed, stamped concrete patio incredibly slippery when it gets wet?
It's a very common and honestly a very valid concern. If a patio is sealed incorrectly with just a basic, cheap, glossy layer, it can absolutely become like an ice rink when it rains or when pool water splashes on it.
Oh man, that sounds dangerous. So how do the experts fix that without ruining the look of the stone?
It's another brilliant chemical additive. Professional concrete contractors will mix a specialized anti-slip grit directly into the final bucket of commercial-grade sealer before they roll it onto the patio.
Anti-slip grit.
Yeah. This microscopic grit becomes permanently suspended in the clear sealer. You can't see it, it doesn't cloud the beautiful dual coloring underneath, but it provides excellent traction for bare feet and shoes. It makes the surface perfectly safe for patios and pool decks, even when completely soaked.
That definitely solves the safety issue. But what about maintaining this whole system for 3 decades? I mean, if you own a wooden deck, you know the drill. Pressure washing, sanding, staining, and replacing rotting boards constantly. What's the actual upkeep for stamped concrete?
The upkeep is surprisingly minimal, precisely because the heavy lifting was done during the engineering phase.
Right.
The stone itself isn't going to rot or splinter. The primary maintenance is simply protecting that top microscopic layer of clear sealer. Contractors advise just giving the patio a quick wash with a hose and applying a fresh coat of clear sealer every 2 to 3 years.
Just a new clear cut every few years, that's it.
That's literally it. That regular resealing does a few critical things. It blocks the harsh West Texas UV rays from fading the vibrant dual colors. It acts as a barrier against the abrasive blowing dust.
Which is huge out there.
Absolutely. And most importantly, it stops things like dripping barbecue grease, spilled wine, or rust from metal lawn furniture from penetrating and permanently staining the porous concrete below. The replaceable sealer takes the beating, so the permanent concrete doesn't have to.
It really is a complete holistic system.
Mm.
You know, when we started this deep dive, we were looking at what seemed like a simple, straightforward advertisement for a local backyard patio company. But by peeling back the layers, we found this incredibly orchestrated battle against nature.
A literal battle.
Yeah, to create that lasting illusion of luxury, to give you a beautiful cobblestone or wood plank outdoor room that won't destroy itself, it requires an amazing synthesis of chemistry, physics, and heavy engineering.
And I think it highlights a much broader truth that applies to almost everything we build. True quality usually comes down to the invisible details, the things you never actually see.
That makes total sense.
The homeowner gets to admire the beautiful colored pattern on the surface, but that patio only survives because of the heavy steel rebar hidden deep underground and those billions of microscopic engineered air pockets permanently trapped inside the stone.
It is the unseen foundation that allows the beautiful surface to endure. And as we wrap up, I just keep coming back to that fascinating detail about day 3 of the installation.
Yeah.
The control joints.
Oh, yeah.
The concrete experts know unequivocally that cracking is an inevitable chemical reality. They can't stop the pressure from building up. So instead of vainly trying to prevent it and risking the entire system shattering, they intentionally create a hidden groove to let the break happen safely, right where they want it to.
Exactly.
It just makes you wonder, what other inevitable cracks in our daily lives, our relationships, or our work systems could we manage better if we simply accepted that the pressure was inevitable and consciously gave it a designated, safe place to fracture?